It's 2023, and Bridget and Mandi's relationship won't be strong enough to save their podcast.
A lot of the comments were cruel, and pretty much you guys were hoping that Bridget stays far away from me because of my views on relationships.
To the rest of y'all who think that this is appropriate to comment on people's friendships and try to plant seeds in people's minds, play with somebody else. Play in the shade room with that book. Stay off our page with that kind of. Because the other thing for me, part of why this dynamic always worked for us was because we knew, number one, we know each other's hearts. We know each other's intentions, right? Number two, we also know that we're not going to agree on a lot of the same things. The things that Mandi and I love about each other are our differences. I take so much pride in how I handle people. Mandi, I know one of Mandi's elements of pride is how she handles business. And so to me, we're a dynamic duo in that way because some of my weaknesses are her strengths and vice versa.
That's right. Episode 182 was a fascinating case study for Bridget and Mandi's relationship. After all, Bridget is engaged and looking forward to something that will transform her life. And Mandi's relationship has just ended in a chaotic fashion, as she has said on the podcast. But what was more interesting about this episode is that it looked like the two ladies were headed in different directions. And it looks like the directions they were headed in would lead to the end of their podcast. Now, this episode isn't the only one we should highlight, as there was an episode prior that caused the conversation on this particular airing of See the Thing Is. And that was episode 178, where Mandi made some comments about her view of relationships, and that led many of the fans of See the Thing Is to observe how Mandi might be a negative influence for someone like Bridget, who was seeking to start off her relationship with her new fiance. And the comments were so loud that Mandi felt visibly hurt. I urge everybody to go back and look at the comment section, as it was pretty brutal and they were taking Mandi down pretty hardcore. For example, look at this comment here. Bridget, if you don't already, you'll need to guard your marriage from Mandi. This might sound hella divisive, but you'll need to have people around you that respect and uphold marriage like you do as a future wife. This is not a single versus married thing. It's fundamentally about beliefs and values. And when it comes to marriage, y'all two are not the same. And that wasn't the only comment. As someone would say, Mandi wants Bridget to be single like her. Misery wants company. Y'all stay woke. And Mandi was so hurt that she would respond back in the comments. Y'all just say anything. I don't need Bridget to be single just because I am. That is not how I move at all. Mandi. And as you can tell, this optic was causing a separation between Bridget and Mandi. Now, I know Bridget and Mandi did play into this idea that they were united and that they were friends, but it looked like they were protesting too much, and eventually they would be separated by the business components of the podcast. But I ask you, listeners, was the marriage and the end of Mandi's relationship one of the contributing factors to why See the Thing Is ended? I mean, this episode happens a year before they part ways, which means that they actually broke up probably like a few months later, because the breakup just didn't happen in March. It happened at December, right? They knew they were going to split apart. And while Mandi says it was the business, Bridget says it was the decaying friendship that led to everything falling apart. And what you see in episode 182 is an attempt by podcasters to seize the optics and stop the fans from suggesting a narrative. But in this case, the fans might have been right. And I urge all of you to remember that if the fans see something, then it's likely true. If it's backed by many comments and the need by the podcasters themselves to defend themselves. But let me know what you think in the comments. Was this a sign about the end of See the Thing Is? And did Bridget and Mandi really come apart because of Bridget's new lifestyle as a fiance? And Mandi embracing the single life. I mean, people were getting really mean with Mandi. There was people saying that, you know, Mandi wanted Bridget to come back to the whole side and, you know, those types of things, which was a little harsh, but it was just what I observed. And I wanted to close off this video by highlighting Caroline, who said something interesting when See the Thing Is ended in my comment section. I had a sneaking suspicion that Bridget's engagement would be the beginning of the end. Mandi would literally bash men and relationships, all while Bridget was living her best life in a loving relationship, even while trying to give Mandi the space to vent. But enough was enough, and I suspect the people who loved Bridget had feelings about Mandi's constant toxic opinions about men and relationships. See, the thing is, while Bridget is allowing Mandi to grieve the loss of a partner, Mandi neglected to honor Bridget's happiness. Additionally, if Mandi decided to take on more responsibility to bury her heartache, cool. But then don't turn around and yield that as a weapon once you feel burnt out and overworked. That was all Mandi's decision making. I also saw the beginning of the end with Mandi and Blue on See the Thing Is episode when Mandi said something ignorant and offensive, and instead of apologizing to Blue, Mandi stood 10 toes down in her ignorant statement. And that's another thing we have to highlight. Blue appears on this episode to give Mandi a tissue while she's crying.
Yo, we got
Oh man, the tea leaves were all over the tree this episode. But everybody go back and watch episode 182 if you want to see the end of See the Thing Is. Alright, that's my deep dive on an old episode that explains how something started by Joe Budden collapsed once these two ladies had to lead the ship. Alright, y'all, follow me on Instagram to Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter to Stop TV. This is Danny from the Stop.